So how do you know when it's time to reinvent your company? And then how do you actually go about doing it? Well, let's turn to this week's board of directors to ask them. Stephen Little is a business consultant and the author of the book, The Milkshake Moment. And Bob Prosen is the president and CEO of the Prosen Center for Business Advancement, where he teaches entrepreneurs how to increase both performance and profits. And he is also an author of the book, Kiss Theory Goodbye. Thanks so much for coming, both of you. It's great to see you both.
Thanks, JJ.
So I love this piece. It's so interesting, but it brings up so many questions like, how do you know if you should reinvent yourself or if that's so risky? He completely changed his business.
But it sounds to me like it was an evolution, not a revolution. He stuck to his core for a while, started adding items, and over time understood the changing dynamics of his community and his customer base. So I don't see it as it was a reinvention as much as it was a natural progression over time.
But isn't it kind of weird? It seems to have worked for him to be selling kind of hardcore mountain gear and then be selling these beautiful suits on the side.
Well, we've got to remember where he's doing this. You know, he's in the international mecca of ski land, and people from all around the world and people that have money are coming there. So I think he's responded well to that changing market. He also changed the name of his business, which could be a little risky, and he seemed to have pulled that off pretty well.
How can you decide if it's best to reinvent your business as a progression or overnight, or just move your business?
I think if you're responding to the idea that you're building a retail business, for instance, that has a customer base leading to a greater lifetime value over time. How can I hang on to more people and get more of their dollars coming in my store? Then you're always going to meet their needs. It isn't about reinventing, it's about trying to just be what they're asking you to be.
Yeah. And so, were you about to say something?
Reinvention generally happens in two ways. The most popular one is through merger and acquisition. But the next one is when you believe your business doesn't reflect what you really are doing anymore. And that's when you change your name. And we've seen that in many companies that have gone through that. Federated Stores has gone to Macy's Group. There's a lot of changes that have happened that have better expressed what the company is about. And I think he's done that. It's better expressing what he's about because he does have a changing business and a changing client profile.
So as he evolves then, what does he need to continue to do? Or what does he need to do for the first time?
If he wanted to stick with his passion, he would have opened those stores in more remote areas where people still use that and still look forward to going to a store with the unique equipment that's required, the technologically advanced equipment that's needed for the rugged outdoor. I think he's moved to...
Not Vail, where a lot of people go there too, and not necessarily ski, but maybe look nice in some of those clothes.
Now, the other thing to think about with him is maybe he's changed his staff some. I mean, when you surround yourself with people who know more than you, maybe he's brought in the kinds of people that understand that new market.
Right, and if the people you have don't, you know, not for this story, but for all the people out there, that's one thing that you can do.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Time now to answer your business questions. The first one comes from the owner of a marketing and sales consulting company.
How do you determine whether to take on a client that is in a completely different facet of business?
That's a hard decision to make because you don't want to turn someone down. It's revenue, it's potentially other clients, and yet if you're not doing it already, it might take too much of your time. What do you do?
I think the key is using your distinctive competencies. Let's not go out and do something we've never done before and increase the risk of failure. But I know I have clients. Let's, for instance, when I started my company, all of a sudden it became apparent to me that architects really were important in me training their firms. I'm not an architect, and that's now a major piece of my business. Why? Because I could transform my skill set into that marketplace. So if you can do that, you should do that. That will open up all kinds of doors for you, and who knows where that will take you.
Right.
I also think there's an idea that of a certain size and a certain specialization, you're best heading in that direction. When you're small and startup, maybe younger, you need to look at new opportunities with as widely as you can, because maybe you'll learn a new skill set that is transferable. So I would caution someone from not investigating fully a new idea if they're up and running and starting and new. If they're already far down the path, perhaps maybe it's not the time to delve into new markets.
See, I would think perhaps the opposite, because you're small, you don't have that many resources. Maybe you want to focus on something and become an expert first, and then...
If revenue is coming in the door, which is how I took the question, I take the revenue when I'm small and upstart, Right,
okay. Let's move on to the next one. This comes from a faculty member from the Business College at Johnson & Wales University who has a question regarding the thousands of new graduates entering the workforce.
What are we doing to prepare as organizations? Because they want everything, and they want it today, and they want it quick and fast, flexibility, technology, diversity in their work. What are we going to do?
Great question. So as a business owner, you're hiring someone right out of college who's not going to be willing perhaps to just, start at the bottom and slowly work up and slowly work up. What do you do with these kids?
This is the most fun time to be hiring this talent. I think I do a lot of work with companies, and next week I'll be on a board in Dallas where we're going to have 100 CEOs talking just about this issue. My son just graduated from Boston University, and he had headphones in his ears when he was studying, and I couldn't relate to that.
And he wants to be the CEO.
And he made straight A's, and he's off to Stanford Law School. So, you know, you can argue how they do it, but they get it done.
But I mean, there is something to be said for people who aren't, it's a different generation than many years ago, where people are willing to kind of make their way up. They want to be up quite quickly.
I have a strong opinion on this. I know that it's not shared by most because it's brought up so often. I hear from especially boomers with businesses that young people are different today. I have a different take on it. My take is that people that are boomers, let's say they're 55, don't remember what it's like to be 25. And so it's got more to do with that. I don't think the world has changed all as much perhaps as she thinks it has. I can see that she and I are similar in age. We have to remember that young people are young people. They change their mind. They want everything tomorrow. They are somewhat impatient. That's what makes them great. As Bob said, that's what I like about them. And so I'm not so sure they've changed quite as much. Some new things like technology, on the whole, young people just are young people. And, and I think that there's not that much difference in generation to generation.
Employers, stay open-minded.
Yeah.
Right?
Harness their creativity.
They are
Use
the
it.
future.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to grow new kids. I think we got to go with the kids that
They
we've
are
got.
the ones.
Okay, let's move on to our emails. This first one comes from Ronald Kalin, who says, I'm trying to manufacture my product domestically, but it's going to be a hardship in terms of expense. Do you think people will pay more for products manufactured in the U.S.? So could I justify raising prices? What do you think, Steve?
I think the marketplace has dictated to the last 20 or 30 years, whether it be automotive or a whiff or dust, that the market may say that they were willing to pay more, but they don't behave that way. Walmart could tell you that, Target could tell you that, and so any business that's in manufacturing, I've been in manufacturing most of my career, what customers tell you and what they actually do are two different things. They will tell you they want it made in the U.S. and they're willing to pay a premium, perhaps. It hasn't bear it out in most markets.
So you have to offer something that's very special.
I think this is a niche play, clearly a niche play. I work with a client that remanufactures PC, and he bills himself as green. Right now, everybody's coming to him, and they're paying a premium because he's green. The times are important. People want reusable product. It depends. Let's say you're working for a government contractor that's in security or armament. We're going to make sure that we buy domestic on those. So it really depends on what niche you're in.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was president of a manufacturing company for hard hats. It had to be made in the U.S. to get government contracts.
So there, maybe that's his niche there. Okay. The next one comes from Jennifer Haben, who wants to know, I'm in the process of negotiating a lease with my landlord. I'm wondering if it makes sense to pay more and have a shorter lease so that I have the flexibility to move, or pay less and have a longer lease. What do you guys think?
Bob, go ahead.
Well, you know, this one is timing. How long are you going to be there? I mean, this is almost a financial analysis. You know, we do it sometimes if we should buy a car or lease a car. It really is economics. So how long will you be in that location? If you're going to be there long enough, then you probably want to look at making a bigger commitment.
I'm assuming she doesn't know. I'm assuming she's starting out here. She just has no idea.
That's my assumption. I'm with Bob. It's all about timing. And if you don't know, then as an entrepreneur, always want flexibility. Always. And so I don't want to have my expenses for sure not being covered. So flexibility, if you don't know, flexibility would be the way I would go.
On the other hand, sometimes I say that year comes up faster than you think it will, and then you might end up spending a lot more. So we didn't really answer a question.
But maybe we should recommend to all of these startups like this, minimize your overhead. Let's minimize the overhead. If you don't even need the office, don't
take it in the first place. Okay,
I agree with that.
Let's go to the last email. It comes from Alan Clausen, who took over his father's company a few years ago, and he says, my father still comes in almost every week and has opinions that I don't agree with. The staff still listens to him because he used to be their boss. How do I exert my control over both my father and my staff? You give him a lunch card for somewhere? Get him a golf membership somewhere?
JJ, this is the norm, not the exception. So sometimes misery loves company. Maybe it'd be nice for Alan to hear that this happens all over the country. I hear it every day around the country.
How do you get your dad out of there?
Or how do you get the parents out? Or how do you get your brother out? This is a very common thing. The direction I would point them in is that there's been plenty of good books, and there's great research at the university level. There are institutes that literally specialize on family business. There is a succession plan out there for you. And just to throw your hands up and say that this is too difficult to deal with would not be the answer. There is an answer. There's a way for both parties to be happy here.
I think it's fear-based. You know, you got mom and dad that created the company. Dad wants to make sure that it continues on in good stead, better than actually he could do it.
Or maybe he's bored.
Maybe he's bored, but let's face it, he's going to stay in control for a while until the son or daughter demonstrates their capability. So what I would recommend is take on small projects, have dad agree that those are the outcomes, I'll achieve those outcomes, and then I'll take on more.
I would definitely recommend that there be a third party to make those assertions. In other words,
right.
Somebody else has to be the arbiter that says this is good, this is bad.
All right, Steve, Bob, thank you so much for answering all those questions. As you know, all of these questions came from our viewers. So if any of you out there have a question that you need help with, here is your chance to have our experts give you some answers.